Beneath 2 miles of ice, Antarctica hides secrets we were never meant to see. Strange maps that show the continent ice-free, rivers that flow red like blood, and military missions that ended in silence. Some say it's the last untouched wilderness. Others believe it's the most guarded mystery on Earth. Welcome back to Truth That Haunts. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment and let me know, where are you watching from and what time of night is it? I'm always curious to see how far these haunting stories travel across the world, and it helps us feel connected as we explore the unknown together. And if you want to follow along as we uncover Antarctica's frozen secrets, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves a chilling mystery. Because tonight, we're going beneath the ice. There is a place on Earth where the sun vanishes for months at a time. A place where temperatures can plummet to 100 degrees below zero, a cold so profound it is not merely an absence of heat, but an active, hostile force. The wind does not whisper here. It screams, carving mountains of ice over millennia, shaping a landscape that is both breathtakingly beautiful and utterly merciless. This is Antarctica, the most remote, the most extreme, the most alien continent on our planet. A continent of pure white, a frozen desert larger than Europe, buried under ice sheets miles thick. It is a land of profound silence, a silence so deep and complete, it feels less like an absence of sound and more like a physical presence. But this silence is a lie. It is the quiet of a vault, the hush of a room where secrets are kept. For this frozen, desolate expanse, at the very bottom of our world, is also one of the most secretive places on Earth. It is a place governed not by a single nation, but by a unique and powerful agreement, the Antarctic Treaty. Signed in 1959, this treaty dedicates the entire continent to peace and scientific research. On the surface, it is a beacon of international cooperation, a rare moment of global unity during the height of the Cold War. It bans military activity, suspends territorial claims, and promises a land of pure knowledge. But consider the implications of such an arrangement: a continent with no permanent population, no independent journalists, no prying eyes. Its affairs are managed by a consortium of powerful governments, far from public scrutiny. What happens in Antarctica is, by design, insulated from the world. The very framework that promises transparency also creates the perfect conditions for obscurity. Why such intense collective interest in this frozen wasteland? Why do nations that can barely agree on anything else work in such careful, quiet unison to manage this ice-locked realm? Is it truly to protect a pristine environment for science? Or is it to protect something else? To guard a truth so unsettling that it requires a treaty to contain it? The questions begin to pile up like snowdrifts, each one more chilling than the last. What truly lies buried beneath those 2 miles of ancient ice? What could be so significant, so potentially disruptive, that it warrants this global silent guardianship? Whispers from the past only deepen the mystery. Ancient maps, like the famous Peary Race chart drawn in 1513, depict a coastline eerily similar to that of Antarctica, but shockingly, without its glacial covering. Geological evidence suggests the last time that land was ice-free was thousands of years before the map was ever drawn. How did a 16th century Ottoman admiral have knowledge of a continent that wouldn't? To be officially discovered for another 3 centuries? Was he copying far older source maps, charts from a forgotten civilization that knew of Antarctica when it was a green and temperate land? The history of its exploration is written in tragedy and unexplained events. Brave men who ventured into the white void never to return. Expeditions that vanished without a trace, their fates swallowed by the blizzards. Even in the modern era, stories persist of researchers who stumble upon something anomalous, something that doesn't fit the official narrative, only to be quickly silenced or rotated out under a veil of secrecy. The official reports always have a logical explanation, a sudden storm, a fatal error in judgment. But one cannot help but wonder if the ice claims more than just lives. Does it also claim the truth? We are left with a haunting paradox. Antarctica is the most openly studied continent, yet it may be the least understood. Its vast, empty landscapes invite the imagination to fill in the blanks, but the official story leaves little room for speculation. Yet the anomalies persist. The strange satellite images, the cryptic statements from high-ranking officials, the ancient clues that suggest we are not the first to gaze upon this frozen shore. This is not merely a continent of ice and rock. It is a riddle, a puzzle box locked by a treaty and guarded by the elements themselves. And the first, most fundamental question we must ask is, what are they so desperately trying to keep us from finding? The silence, it seems, is not empty. It is waiting. The silence of Antarctica is not an empty one. It is a silence heavy with memory, with stories of unimaginable courage and profound loss. Long before satellites circled overhead, this continent was challenged by men of flesh and blood, armed with little more than wool coats, wooden ships, and an indomitable will to see what lay at the end of the earth. Their stories are not just tales of exploration. They are ghost stories etched into the very ice that claimed them. To understand the mystery of Antarctica, one must first listen to the whispers of those who never left. The name of Captain Robert Falcon Scott hangs over this history like a pall. His Terra Nova expedition, aiming for the South Pole in 1912, became a slow-motion tragedy played out against an infinite white stage. Imagine the crushing despair. After an arduous journey, they finally reached the pole, only to find the flag of their rival Roald Amundsen already planted there. The victory they had sacrificed everything for was already a footnote. The return journey was a descent into a frozen hell. The weather turned apocalyptic. Supplies dwindled. Frostbite blackened fingers and toes. Scott and his men wrote their final letters in a tent slowly being buried by an unrelenting blizzard. Their bodies were eventually found, along with their diaries, a haunting last testament to their struggle. But the official record is only part of the story. What was it like in that tent in those final frigid hours? What thoughts plagued them as the wind screamed outside, a sound that must have been like the laughter of the continent itself? Their fate feels less like an accident and more like a judgment, as if the ice had simply decided it was their time to join its permanent silent collection. Then there is the legend of Sir Ernest Shackleton, a story not of death, but of a survival so miraculous it borders on the supernatural. His ship, the Endurance, was not merely damaged by the ice. It was slowly, deliberately crushed, a wooden hull succumbing to pressures beyond human comprehension. The photographs of the doomed ship, locked in a grip of ice that looks like monstrous frozen fingers, are chilling. What followed was an epic journey across treacherous seas and uncharted glaciers, a testament to human spirit. But even here, in this tale of triumph, there are unsettling cracks. Men on that journey reported seeing things. Phantom companions walking alongside them during brutal marshes. Strange, unexplainable sounds carried on the wind sounds that were not the cracking of ice or the howl of a gale, but something else, something almost melodic, yet deeply unsettling. Were these the hallucinations of exhausted, starving men? Or were they perceiving something that exists just on the edge of reality in this extreme place? Shackleton brought all his men home alive, but one has to wonder if something of Antarctica followed them back. These stories of the heroic age are the foundation, but the eerie occurrences did not end with the advent of modern technology. There are accounts from later expeditions, from scientists stationed at remote bases, that speak of a different kind of haunting. The feeling of being watched in a landscape devoid of any other human life for thousands of miles. The phenomenon of Antarctic madness, a creeping psychosis brought on by isolation and the endless white expanse. But some reports are more specific. whispers of ghostly figures seen moving through ground blizzards, shapes that appear humanoid but vanish the moment the wind dies down. There are tales of abandoned research stations like the Soviet Union's Polyus-Nedostupnosti or Pole of Inaccessibility base, left suddenly with personal effects still inside, as if the occupants simply walked away into the white. Today, these structures creak and groan in the wind, their corridors filled not with life, but with the ghosts of decisions we can never understand. What drove those men to leave in such haste? What did they encounter that was more terrifying than facing the Antarctic winter without shelter? The ice itself seems to have a voice. Scientists and explorers have reported strange low-frequency hums that seem to emanate from the ground, vibrations that can be felt in the bones. There are sounds of ice quakes, yes, but also noises that defy classification. The legendary bloop, an ultra-low-frequency sound detected by hydrophones in 1997, was powerful enough to be heard by sensors thousands of miles apart. While officially attributed to the sound of a massive ice calving, the sheer scale and strangeness of the sound have fueled speculation for decades. Is it just the ice? Or is it something else, something massive, shifting deep beneath the frozen surface? The history of Antarctic exploration is a chronicle written in frost and shadow. It is a narrative where triumph and tragedy are inseparable twins. For every success, there is a vanished expedition. For every scientific breakthrough, there is an unexplained sound, a fleeting shadow, a story that doesn't quite add up. It is as if the continent does not give up its secrets willingly. It tests those who come, and it claims a price from those who dare to look too closely. The men of the heroic age are long gone, but their spirits seem to linger, a permanent warning etched into the polar wind. They are a reminder that Antarctica is not a passive landscape. It is an active participant in its own mystery, and it has been haunting us for as long as we have tried to conquer it. The heroic age of wooden ships and dog sleds gave way to a new era of steel and propellers. But the transition did not make Antarctica any less mysterious. If anything, it deepened the enigma, moving the mystery from the realm of tragic exploration into the shadowy world of military intrigue and official secrets. The pivotal event in this shift remains, to this day, one of the most debated and unsettling chapters in Antarctic history, Operation Highjump. In 1946, just a year after the end of the Second World War, the United States Navy launched an expedition to Antarctica of a scale that has never been matched before or since. Led by the celebrated polar explorer Admiral Richard E. Byrd, Operation Highjump was a veritable armada. It consisted of 13 ships, including an aircraft carrier, an icebreaker, a submarine, and over 4,000 men. The official mission, as stated by the Navy, was straightforward: to establish a research base, test military equipment in extreme cold conditions, and train personnel. It was scheduled to last for 6 to 8 months, but it did not last 6 months. The entire operation was abruptly terminated after just 8 weeks. The official explanation cited the early arrival of adverse weather conditions, but the sheer scale of the force, the timing so soon after a devastating world war, and the hurried nature of its departure have fueled decades of speculation. Why commit such massive resources for a mission that was cut so drastically short? Was it really just a training exercise? Or was Operation Highjump something else entirely, a military campaign on a continent supposedly dedicated to peace? This is where the facts begin to blur into the realm of allegation and theory. Admiral Byrd himself made statements upon his return that have become the cornerstone of Antarctic conspiracy lore. In an interview with a Chilean journalist, Byrd was allegedly quoted as saying that the United States needed to prepare for the possibility of an invasion, but not from any known enemy. He reportedly spoke of a new, grave reality, warning that in the event of a new war, America would be attacked by objects that could fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. These flying objects, he allegedly claimed, were a formidable threat. The official Navy record contains no such statements, and the interview's authenticity is debated. But the story persists with remarkable tenacity. If true, what could have prompted such a cryptic warning from a decorated admiral? What did his fleet encounter in the frigid Antarctic skies? Some believe Operation Highjump was not a training mission, but a reconnaissance and force. Its objective, they allege, was to investigate something the military had learned about something, formidable enough to require an entire naval task force. This leads to one of the most persistent theories, the idea of hidden Nazi bases. In the chaotic aftermath of World War II, high-ranking Nazi officials were known to have fled Germany. While most historical accounts focus on escapes to South America, a more fringe theory suggests that a significant contingent, perhaps even with Hitler himself, escaped to a secret base in Antarctica, a place they called Neuschwabenland, after a pre-war German expedition that had claimed a sector of the continent. Proponents of this theory argue that the Nazis were exploring advanced technology, including disc-shaped aircraft, and that they established a fortified redoubt deep within the ice. Operation Highjump, then, was not a training exercise, but a military assault on this remaining Nazi stronghold, an assault that, according to the theory, failed spectacularly, leading to the rapid withdrawal of Byrd's fleet after encountering unexpectedly powerful resistance. Other theories are even more expansive. Some researchers, piecing together anomalous satellite images and radar data, suggest that what lies beneath the ice is not a Nazi base, but something far older and more profound. They point to alleged discoveries of vast subterranean cavern systems warmed by geothermal activity, which could theoretically support life. Within these hidden worlds, some believe, could be the remnants of an ancient, lost civilization, perhaps even the fabled Atlantis, whose technology remains operational, and whose existence is the true secret being guarded. Others speculate that these caverns are not human at all, but serve as a base for non-human intelligence, explaining the flying objects Byrd allegedly referenced. The truth of Operation Highjump is locked away in classified naval archives, if it exists at all in any single document. What we are left with is a tantalizing puzzle. The undeniable fact of the mission's massive scale and sudden end clashes with the simplistic official explanation. It creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum flow theories of hidden enemies, lost technologies, and ancient secrets. Whether one believes the official story or leans into the speculations, Operation Highjump marks a definitive moment. It signaled that Antarctica was no longer just a frontier for explorers and scientists. It had become a strategic interest, a place of shadows where the lines between fact and frightening possibility are as thin as the Antarctic air. The ice, it seems, had new guardians, and their missions were not for public knowledge. The conspiracies and military mysteries are one thing. They are stories imposed upon Antarctica by human intrigue. But what if the most compelling evidence that this continent is hiding something is not found in classified files, but in the land itself? Antarctica is not a passive, frozen corpse. It is a living, breathing, and deeply alien landscape, one that conceals wonders so strange they defy belief. The ice does not just hide secrets. It occasionally bleeds them out for those who know where to look. Consider the Taylor Glacier. In the otherwise pristine, white expanse of the McMurdo Dry Valleys, there is a wound in the ice. From a precise surgical crack in the glacier's tongue, a waterfall the color of rust, of dried blood, pours steadily forth. This is Blood Falls. For decades, scientists were baffled by this macabre spectacle. The answer, when it came, was both simple and profoundly unsettling. The source is a hypersaline, iron-rich lake, trapped deep beneath the ice for over 1 million years. Cut off from light and atmosphere, This ancient reservoir is home to a unique ecosystem of microbial life organisms that have survived in complete isolation, metabolizing sulfates and iron in the complete darkness. When this water finally seeps to the surface and meets the air, the iron oxidizes, turning a violent bloody red. It is a shocking sight, the continent bleeding its ancient, trapped life out onto the surface. It is a stark, visceral reminder that beneath the sterile white skin of Antarctica, there are complex, hidden systems, ecosystems that have followed a different evolutionary path for millennia. If this is what seeps out from a single crack, what other, more complex life might be sealed in the darkness below? This question leads us to the granddaddy of all Antarctic mysteries, Lake Vostok. Buried under 2.5 miles of solid ice, this is not merely a lake. It is a vast, dark, freshwater sea, roughly the size of Lake Ontario. It has been completely isolated from the rest of the world for an estimated 15 to 25 million years. It exists in a state of perpetual darkness under immense pressure, in conditions that mimic not the Earth of today, but the icy moons of Jupiter, like Europa. The technological feat of drilling down to its surface was a triumph of science, but it was halted for years over fears of contamination, the profound ethical question of introducing modern microbes into a pristine, prehistoric world. When samples were finally retrieved, they revealed genetic sequences from thousands of microbial organisms, suggesting a complex ecosystem thriving in the absolute dark. But the haunting implication is this: Lake Vostok is not alone. There are hundreds of these subglacial lakes networked beneath the ice sheet. They form a hidden, dark ocean, a world within a world, entirely separate from our own. What else has been evolving down there in that silent, pressurized darkness for millions of years? Are we looking at simple, hardy microbes? Or could there be life forms so alien, so unlike anything we know, that their very discovery would rewrite the book of biology? The ice above Vostok is not just a barrier of frozen water. It is a lid on a time capsule from a lost age. Then there are the anomalies that cannot be so easily explained by biology or geology. For years, satellite images and aerial surveys have picked up strange, persistent magnetic readings over certain regions of the continent. These are not the planet's natural magnetic field, but localized, powerful disruptions. Officially, they are attributed to concentrations of magnetic minerals in the bedrock, but the patterns are sometimes unusual. And then there are the images that have sparked endless debate online and in fringe research circles. Aerial photographs of mountain peaks that, from certain angles and under specific lighting conditions, appear to have a startling geometric symmetry, the so-called Antarctic pyramids. Geologists are quick and firm in their explanation. These are nunataks, which are simply the peaks of mountains protruding through the ice sheet, and their pyramidal shape is a common result of freeze-thaw erosion acting on all sides of a peak over eons. It is a perfectly reasonable scientific explanation, yet the human mind is wired to seek patterns, especially in a landscape so devoid of them. The sheer regularity of some of these formations when viewed from above is undeniably eerie. Is it a trick of perspective and light? A classic case of pareidolia seeing familiar shapes and random patterns? Or does it tap into a deeper, more unsettling possibility? Could we be looking at the worn-down, ice-blasted tips of structures that are not natural at all? When you piece these elements together, a bleeding glacier, a hidden ancient ocean, magnetic ghosts, and strangely symmetrical mountains, a picture emerges that is far stranger than any conspiracy theory. It suggests that Antarctica's greatest secrets are not necessarily what we have hidden there, but what has been there all along. The continent feels less like a place and more like a living entity, a sleeping giant whose frozen skin occasionally twitches, revealing glimpses of the bizarre and ancient systems operating beneath. It is a land that actively resists understanding, protecting its innermost mysteries with a shell of ice, cold, and wind. The phenomena we can observe are merely symptoms. The real truth of Antarctica lies buried, waiting in the dark, silent water and the deep, ancient rock. It is not a secret kept by men, but a secret kept by the planet itself. And it may not be willing to give it up. So, where does this leave us? After journeying through the tragic histories, the military anomalies, and the land's own inherent strangeness, we are left with a mosaic of possibilities, each more profound than the last. The evidence, both hard and circumstantial, points not to a single truth, but to a spectrum of them, all hidden beneath the ice. The question is no longer if Antarctica holds secrets, but rather how deep and how world-altering those secrets truly are. Could this frozen continent be the final resting place of a lost chapter in human history? The theory that Antarctica is the ghost of Atlantis or another advanced prehistoric civilization is compelling. The Piri race map remains an enigmatic clue, suggesting ancient knowledge of an ice-free coastline. A cataclysmic pole shift, a theory debated by some geologists, could have suddenly plunged a temperate, thriving land into a deep freeze, flash freezing an entire society and entombing it under millennia of ice. The strange, symmetrical peaks that some see as pyramids could be the last. Weathered tips of immense structures, the only parts still visible after eons of glacial scraping. Is the true purpose of the scientific basis not just to study the ice, but to quietly, carefully excavate the greatest archaeological discovery in human history? Or does the truth venture even further into the unknown? The theories surrounding Operation Highjump and Admiral Byrd's alleged statements point to something more active, more present. Could the vast, empty interior serve as a perfect sanctuary for non-human intelligence? Its remoteness and harsh environment are an effective natural quarantine, while the ice itself is the perfect shield against prying eyes. The unexplained magnetic anomalies, the stories of advanced aircraft, and the sheer scale of global secrecy could be explained if Antarctica is not a relic, but a hub. A place of observation, or perhaps even interaction, hidden in plain sight at the bottom of the world. Are the restricted zones not protecting delicate ecosystems, but concealing the fact that we are not the sole occupants of this planet? Then there is the most conservative, yet still deeply haunting theory, that Antarctica is simply the last great wilderness, and its secrets are purely natural. That Lake Vostok and the subglacial network contain life forms so alien in their evolution that they would revolutionize our understanding of biology itself. That the continent's unique geology and isolation have created phenomena we simply cannot yet explain. In this view, the secrecy is not about hiding ruins or UFOs, but about controlling the timeline of discovery, about ensuring that the monumental revelations from this frozen archive are managed by governments and institutions, not released chaotically into the public domain. The Antarctic Treaty, that symbol of peace, is the lock on this puzzle box. Its provisions for scientific cooperation also create a curtain of bureaucratic opacity. What is deemed sensitive research data can cover a multitude of sins. The consistent, unified front presented by the treaty nations is, in itself, suspicious. It is a silence that speaks volumes. They are not just guarding a continent. They are guarding a narrative. They are controlling the story of what Antarctica is, and more importantly, what it is not. We are left with echoes in the wind, the whispers of Scott and Shackleton's men, the rumble of Admiral Byrd's armada, the silent, dark pressure of Lake Vostok, the blood-red stain on the Taylor Glacier. These are not just stories. They are symptoms of a deeper truth. Antarctica may be the most haunted place on Earth, but its ghosts are not spectral figures wandering the ice. They are the ghosts of possibilities, of lost histories, and of futures we are not yet prepared to face. They are secrets frozen in time, waiting for the world to thaw enough to understand them. Antarctica's frozen landscape may look empty, but the deeper you dig, the stranger it becomes. From blood-red rivers to whispers of lost civilizations, one thing is certain: the story is far from over. We'll be following these mysteries as new discoveries are revealed, and I want to hear your thoughts. What do you believe Antarctica is really hiding? Leave your theories in the comments. I'll be reading through them all. And if you haven't yet, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because here at Truth That Haunts, we'll be returning to the ice. Until the day its secrets finally surface.